I'm Aid. Welcome to my studio. Today I want to show you how to make one of my cicada prints. So these cicada prints were made with an actual cicada. I have him over here. I've made over 100 prints with this guy. And he's starting to show his age. You can see his legs have broken off here. His wings are curling, but I probably still have, I don't know, 20, 50, maybe more prints before he completely disintegrates. This guy has been with me a long time, so I've grown strangely attached to him. So let me put him back in his home over there. And you can see he's falling apart. Little particles of him have just actually fallen off here. I've made a few prints with him, and when I end up with a print like this, I've got a real nice print, but the overall composition isn't that great. I need to do something to this to make it worthy of hanging on your wall. Same with these two. And the reason I grabbed 3 is it gives me some options here. Like I said, I don't have a plan, and that's part of the fun. These are the starting cicadas. I've got these reject prints where I've cut out cicadas from existing prints, and these are just source material. So I give myself some options. I look for relationships that I want to enhance. Okay, I'm liking this one, so let's start here. One of the things I don't like is it's a little off center. I don't mind this black on the edge. I think I can work with that, but I'd like to get this into the center of the print. To do that, I've got really the only tool I'm going to be using here is an X-Acto knife. I'm going to transfer this label onto another one and try to get that cicada more centered. I think I'm going to take off this edge here. I'm going to pull this off of the backing. If it isn't obvious here, I'm working with shipping labels. They have the adhesive side right inside them. That makes it really easy to mix and match and cut up, and I don't have to worry about glue because the adhesive is right there. They're very thin also, which is nice, so it doesn't feel like I'm building up too much layers. It still stays relatively flat. Now that I've got this, I'm looking for relationships. You notice how this edge sort of relates to the border that this has. I'm going to put this on. Once it's attached, it's permanent. So, it's kind of a moment of truth. Do I really like this? Am I ready to commit to it? And I think I am. Put that on there. Now the question is, what do I do next? And when these things aren't speaking to me, I can set it to the side and come back to it. I actually like what's happening here. So, but before I leave this one, I'm gonna clean up this edge here where it overlapped beyond the boundaries of my 4x6. And the reason I do that is the 4x6 boundary is a constraint that I've put on myself, and constraints are helpful. When you're creating art, you could do whatever you want, which is fun, but it's also intimidating. You find constraints that make sense, and then you really try hard not to break them. Rules are meant to be broken, but in the case of constraints, you just need a reason. For me, the 4x6 edge and even the rounded corners, that's the sandbox that I've decided to play in. This guy might be done. So I'm gonna set him off to the side and grab another one. I was looking at this one earlier and thinking this might work on this cicada. So what I'm gonna do is transfer this onto here. And the reason I'm doing that is there's a nice, real just dark boundary here. And I think that boundary is dark enough that it's gonna emphasize the shape of the cicada. I might be wrong there though, right? So we'll see what happens because the edge of this cicada is already well defined and it's dark. So it might not work. That's part of the fun here is we have to embrace the possibility that we might be ruining this. I think that's gonna work. I'm trying to decide here, again, that my 4x6 boundary. Do I want this edge to be the boundary or do I want this edge to be the boundary? I think I want this because I might keep this gray on the outside. But what that means is when I transfer this, because they're not gonna line up, I'm gonna have to trim the bottom one. I'm gonna peel this off. The reason I was trying to think ahead here is you could see I've got adhesive exposed here. And, short term, that's fine. But if I were to set this aside, right, it might pick up junk and dirt. And then when I go to apply it, when I'm finally done, it's not going to work. So I'm going to actually cover that up. So I'll take the back off of both of these now. and then position this in a way that, okay, now I'm going to trim the back one off. I got a little excess on this edge too. I'm going to trim that. All right, let's look at what we got. Yeah, I think that's doing what I wanted. Maybe I would have liked a little more definition down here. I think we're okay here. I like the white edge that I caught on the top shape of this. I'll give you a close-up of this because you can see the cicada pretty clearly, right? You've got his face here with the eyes, and I don't know if cicadas have a beak, but the mouth area and the legs and his abdomen, lots of detail in the wings. So I think we've improved this. So our third cicada, what are we gonna do with him? Let's do something a little bit more risky here. Let's find something a little different. What if we take parts of both of these? Let me start with this. Actually, I'm changing my mind. The reason I'm changing my mind is when I apply this, I'm thinking about where the contrast is. This edge is darker than this edge, and I've got a real hard dark edge here. So rather than do dark on dark, I'm gonna do dark on mid-gray. Yeah, let's commit to that. I'm experimenting here, so what I want to do, I'm going to cut him out. Yeah. And on the top too, I might take an odd angle here. Try to give this one something else for us to react to. All right, now I want to add him on top of, like, maybe I'm seeing some interesting relationships, you know, in this area with this area. Some of these shapes are really nice. What if we put this on top of this? Yeah, that's not bad. Let's try it this way. Do you like that? I might trim this edge here. And the reason I'm trimming this is I want some parts of this. Like I'm going to use this and this and this before we're said and done. So trim that. I don't want that edge. This edge I'm going to use right up to the edge. I'm gonna go with that. Speaking of breaking rules, one of the things you learn early on in design is not to just put something straight in the middle of your work. They teach you things like the rule of thirds. It's better to have something on a third than straight. Yeah, I'm breaking a rule here intentionally, knowing I'm doing it. But my rationale is this is not a single piece. This is a piece in a series. Every print I'm going to make is going to have basically that shape in the center. Yeah, so I'm not apologizing for that. I'm intentionally breaking the rules. Okay, I said I wanted to use these other pieces. I want it to look like I'm combining two prints here. I'm going to use this just to add some structure to this print. When I start to use these pieces, it just starts to come together. This piece I like down here. It's not bad. Okay, so why did I put that there? What I was looking at is, so I've got this dark wing shape. Notice how there's a dark echo of that wing shape right here. So I'm watching this line come through and relate. The other is, right, I went parallel with that line. Notice how it's not perfectly square. If you go off this line, it's a little off. If I just had that one line, it might look like a mistake, because why go off when you could be square? If you do something once, it's an accident. If you do it twice or three times, it's intentional. So now I'm essentially saying with that, nope, that line is meant to be a little bit off. And earlier I said I was going to make that one off. So that one, it doesn't look like an accident because it's far enough off of square that it's pretty obvious that that was an intentional line. But I want to do the same thing up here. How can I make that a part of the overall story? So we got this more angled up here. Down here it's slightly less. Let's see what we can do with that. I've got this little piece that was over here. I feel like up here I have to use that edge again. Where do you put it? You go all the way to the top. If I put it here, notice how that gray would just blend in here. I want to use this angle too. I'm going to put it over the black right on the edge. Right, and notice how we did two things with that. We continued that line here, but we also reinforced this angle. there's two areas I want to work on. I want to work on this area is kind of dead, and I want to do something down here to add a little structure. So what pieces do I have left here? I've got this. There's a nice texture in here that's worth saving. So I'm going to pull this out. So I've got this texture. And now I've got another linear element here. I've got to decide where I want it. It's kind of nice. What about up here? I feel like another option here is on this edge. I think that might be the winner. Before I do this, I want to extend that line when I do that. So I'm gonna trim this piece, try to put this at that same angle. And do I do it right on the edge? Or do I do it on this edge? I'm gonna split the difference. And a little bit of serendipity, that edge may just happen to be the exact same length. So I like that. Still, I gotta do something in this space. So that's a pretty nice area there. I wonder, something like that maybe. Hey, you notice how I completed that edge there? I've looked for ways to work with this composition, not fight it. Right? If I try to impose my will on it, I won't get what I want. But if I work with it, I think serendipity works in your favor. What can I do with this? Where does that go? It wants to match up with that line. All right, I think to finish this off, I want a little bit vertical lines. I like what's happening over here. I want to echo that here and down here. I also want to break into this space. So I need something to work with. I've got just enough of that to get another strip out of it. Probably there. Yep, I'm gonna trim that part off because I don't want this edge just right out here. I'm tempted to put it into our cicada shape. It's kind of breaking a rule boldly. First, let's do this. And then for this, it feels like it's an echo of this shape in here. Right? Notice how that white, right? It's about the same width. I'm gonna commit to this, but I'm gonna have to come back and fix something. I'll show you. The part that I don't like is this little angle here. Right? Notice if it was straight, I'd be good with it, but it's just a little off. And this is a bit of a tricky cut to make. So I need to cut it. I'm gonna lift that. I'm gonna cut it and lift it off, but I don't want to cut too deep. So I carefully. That's better. Okay, we're getting close now. I'll do a little cleanup here too. It may seem silly to, I mean, look at that little piece I just trimmed off there. Is that worth the 30 seconds it took me to trim that? It really, in my opinion, it is. Like, these are tiny little details that add up to a bigger story. So sweat the details. For the final thing is I need a vertical line right there. I might grab this shape right here. See what that gives us. Where does that want to go? Let's bail on that decision and try something else. That's not bad. Only thing that's wrong with that is that bottom edge. So I'm gonna square that off. All right, what am I thinking about here? Right, I'm gonna hit that edge of that first piece we did, and then depth-wise, I want the white edge to hit up here. So that puts it right there. Second guessing myself here. What I'm seeing is this bottom edge is just a little thicker than it is here, and I want that to be square. I'm gonna attempt to trim this before I set that down. Again, very light micro decisions here. When you're trying to be square, you gotta nail it because your eyeball notices. Oh, how did we do? So you get to a point with one of these where you feel good about it. What do? You live with it. Maybe tomorrow I won't like it anymore, and I'll come in and I'll say, you know what, this needs some work. Or I'll look at it tomorrow and be like, yeah, it's done. No need to rush and say this thing's finished. Take your time, live with it a little bit. Yeah, let's compare what we made today. We got 3 prints here. Which is your favorite? Thanks for listening today. I learned a lot just by doing and talking through it, so hopefully you learned as much as I did. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.